Good morning, everyone, and I would like to welcome you all today to the second Interregional Policy Learning event organised through the EU SHAFE project. The EU SHAFE brings together 7 European regions, and they're looking at approaches to smart, healthy ageing environments within their areas. They have been carrying out an assessment on a number of the domains within the smart age-friendly environment. And these domains are in housing, social participation, which is going to be the focus of today's event, where we're going to hear from a number of contributors on the practices within their own regions. The third area is on communication and information, and the fourth is on health and community services. As I mentioned, today's workshop will present the lessons learned and the collected good practices in the different regions participating. And we hope that through today's event, we will be able to boost the international learning policy exchange between the different regions and territories, and to share any additional experiences that could be relevant to the project. And as today's event is hosted by the region of Bizkaia, we're going to have some additional contributions from Bizkaia, where we're all going to learn a little bit more about that. As I say, my name's John Farrell, and I'm from the Reference Site Collaborative Network. And the Reference Site Collaborative Network brings together all of the EIP on AHA reference sites. And for those of you that are familiar with the EIP on AHA, and maybe your reference sites yourselves, but for those of you that are not, the RSCN brings together these reference site regions so as to enable the collaboration, the sharing and exchange of knowledge and good practices, so that we can actually contribute to the scaling up of innovation, and particularly digital innovation within active and healthy aging, and particularly the contribution in terms of how that all sits within smart age-friendly environments. So that's a piece from me. I would like to invite Jose Miguel to say a few words of welcome as well. Jose Miguel?
Yes, thank you, John. Good morning. Thanks for being with us on this domain.
Jose Miguel, I can't hear you. I just wonder, can anybody else?
No.
Okay, sorry. Sorry again. I was saying thank you, John. Thank you for being with us in this domain focus policy learning meeting, the Bizkaia Interregional Policy Learning, as you did in the first event in Campania. Thank you for your support to EU Safe project. This is the second event of this kind that we are holding in fulfillment of the work plan established within EU Safe project. We have to be satisfied with the fact of holding it in undoubtedly difficult times and very different from those initially foreseen. Somehow we have adapted to this new and not assumed normality, always waiting for the new times that are the old ones. Meanwhile, for the project, the organization of these events correspond to Bizkaia, and now in my condition of Bizkaia region, so changing my hat or my cap, I would like to say you all ongi etorri. Ongi etorri, that it is welcome in our native Basque language, one of the oldest languages in Europe. So ongi etorri and eskerrik asko etortzeagatik. That means thank you for being with us. We will repeat ourselves during the day, saying that we would have loved to have you in person with us to try to be the best host and introduce to you our land and practices. but well, things are as they are. So it will have another time. So we will try to make the most of this workshop. So welcome again, and John.
Okay, thank you, Jose Miguel. Well, we're going to move ahead now to the different presentations from the different contributors, and I would like to welcome back Jose Miguel again, who is the SHAP lead, one of the lead partners from SHAPE. Just a little piece about Jose Miguel. Jose Miguel, he studied at the Basque Country University, where he did economics, and he followed it up with a master's at Lausanne, as well as attending Harvard University. He has worked with the Provincial Council of Bizkaia. He's been a director of employment to the Basque government, director of general services to the Basque government, and was the vice president of industry and energy at the Basque government. He's experienced in industry as well, where he was general director and deputy general director of the European Software Institute, chief executive of the Bilbao Exhibition Centre, and president of the Basque Country Network of Technology Parks. Jose Miguel is a board member of Technology and Energy, public and private owned companies, as well as research centres. With that introduction, Jose Miguel, I pass the floor to yourself.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Thank you again. Okay, coming to the project. Well, now within the USA projects, we are in the middle, in the equator of the project. We are finishing our this third semester that it is ending on the 31st of January. So we are in the equator. Well, overcoming the difficulties generated by this unforeseen environment, that it is not the one that we thought that we were going to have, and it is not the one that we made our plans to Interreg. Okay, we have overcoming the difficulties generated by this unforeseen environment. For me, the most important problem has been the loss of proximity and interaction between partners and stakeholders, between partners and third parties. We have had to reinvent the relationships originally foreseen, besides, and now this has been mitigated by a large increase of the online activities, as it is the case now. And well, we think that it has been, we have reasonably adapted to the new format. In terms of work, well, the project is going okay. The field work, sorry, has been already done. The assessment report has been done as well, and the best practices has been identified. This is an important part in order to work for the rest of the project. Two domains have been already analyzed, but the second one is going to be analyzed during today's meeting. And the service coming from this, the subsequent service coming from this analysis have been put into place by the scientific part of the project. At the same time, two reports have been approved by the Joint Secretariat of the Interreg. You can see which is the fulfillment of activities as it is in the second semester. That means that it is the ones that are officially approved by Interreg. As we can see, we are in the average of the number of Polish learning events organized, 12, just counting 2 semesters. Now we are finishing the third, so we'll maintain the average so that foresees the fulfillment at the very end. In terms of good practices, we have identified up to now 39 that it's well more than foreseen in principle. I think that this part, as I have said before, is the field work probably will not be increased very much till the end of the project, but it is something that it was foreseen like that. With respect to the other two figures that are zero right today, this is normal because this is the part of the project that should be done in the second phase. Is the number of action plans to be developed, at least one per region, and the subsequent increase in professional capacities that should come from the action plans. So the project, well, and the number of appearances in media, here we have 33. I think that this is the official number again, the official figure. I will say that it is not correct, probably is double, but this is what appears in the numbers of the Interreg. The coming challenges, well, now we are starting the second half of the project. Now we should start with the reporting 3, starting next 31st of January. And as I've said before, the development of the action plans. This is the critical part of the project because it's where everything done before, done in advance, should come to a result. First of all, influencing regional policies on the basis of knowledge gain and cooperation achieved as a result of the project. And the second, that it is how that theoretical part is translated into generate jobs through prior participation in the interregional cooperation activities. As a project, we have challenges in the project. We have an important challenge that we are being pressed by the Interreg program, that it is the underspend. Well, they say that we are not spending as much as we should, and that's true. These are not the figures that we compromised in the very beginning, but of course there are a lot of expenses that cannot be done, as it's traveling, as it is everything related to meeting each other in different places or in different media than online. Okay, we have committed each other. We have committed everybody to increase our expenses, not spending just for spending, but it's just for fulfilling the project. As I mentioned, here is in blue the part of the project that is already done, and the meetings that we have maintained in Aarhus, in principle, in Campania, later on in Hamburg, and now in Bilbao, and the ones that are pending, as it is in Lauza and Ligia this year, and Aarhus, Coimbra, and again Bilbao, the big meeting that we will have in order to finish the project, or at least the big meeting that it is foreseen for closing the project. So this is an important challenge, not exactly as a project, but as a human beings and as Europeans. Okay, we will be able to meet in person in 2021. Well, doesn't seem to be very probable, but Lauza and Ligia, I'm not sure that we will be able to meet each other. Perhaps in the 22nd in Aarhus or in Coimbra. Okay, in any case, we're not prepared and healthy for Europe and within the project meeting expectations. So this is how the project is nowadays. Now you have some more information from the scientific part of the project that is carried out by Deusto and Dublin, but I think that today is Deusto the one that's going to present the situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jose Miguel. And we're going to now turn our attentions to Amaya, and I give a brief introduction to Amaya in a second. But before I do that, could I just mention to everyone that if you have any questions, if you post them onto the screen, either in the chat or the Q&A boxes, what we will do at the end of each session is that we will have a Q&A session. We can pick the questions up at this stage. I'd like to welcome Amaya Mendez Sorella from the University of Deusto, and Amaya will give a presentation on the preliminary results of the EU SHAFE aggregated report on good practices related to the WHO social participation domain. By way of a background to Amaya, Amaya is a telecommunications engineer, which is qualified from the University of Deusto. She obtained her doctorate in computer science in 2012, which was directed by Begoña Garcia Zaparen. Nowadays, Amaya's research interests are focused on the development of new technology projects at the service of society, mainly towards the elderly and the physical activity and engineering. Amaya has worked in numerous regional, national, and EU research projects, and has contributed and written many publications on her published publications of her results. Amaya, can I pass the floor to you?
Yes, good morning. Thank you, John. Good morning to everyone. I'm going to make the presentation of domain 2 good practices about social participation, and mainly about the results of the questionnaire. First of all, I'm going to summarize the main objectives of the 5 good practices from Coimbra, Aarhus, Hamburg, Ireland, and Slovenia. And after that, we will speak about the results of the questions answered by the stakeholders of each region. And the first best practice is from Caritas Coimbra, and the IDOVIS project with and this project has the aim to create groups of independent older adults who were visiting other institutionalized and dependent people. The main objective is to create increase the activity between peers, increase the volunteering activities, and improve the emotional and affective state of the elderly people, and create support networks. The B4 is the BP from Aarhus municipality, and the main activities are made in the municipalities and in 37 local centers. And these activities that are open to everyone, and they have activities related with exercise, singing, music, computer rooms, and etc. And the objective is to avoid the loneliness, try to make activities to avoid also the poor health, and activities related with prevention of and rehabilitation of the elderly people. The third BP is from Hamburg, and in this case it's at the district levels. In this case, all the inhabitants should live in self-determined as possible. Then they create an approach that is a mix out of self-help, civil involvement, neighborhood assistance, professional support, and new technical solutions. And they try to give them abilities to to live in the to live self-determined in their living environment. And this foundation, the Evangelic Foundation, has a lot of experience in these fields and try to make social work and integrated social security system. B6 is from Ireland, from the Louth County Council, and in this case is from the Drogheda and District Support for Older People. This is the charity association, and they have 70 older volunteers and have a lot of projects with a lot of activities, like the free morning phone call to older people to avoid loneliness and vulnerability. Also, they provide help with retired handymen and tradesmen assisting elderly people with some services with a minimum cost. Also, they provide teaching conversational English to new immigrants and etc. And the main objective is to provide support for the health to the elderly, safety, well-being, and community involvement of the older people. The last BP is from Slovenia, and they offer mainly physical training or different physical activities for all generations. And this BP is centered on physical activity. They involve volunteers and different people from different generations, not only elderly people. Because of that, they put from 9 months to more than 100 years. And the objective is this, to increase this cooperation, the volunteering, establish the network of the volunteers, and promote the active participation of all generation in these activities, promoting these physical exercises. If any of the participants would like to complete this information, please feel free to do this, because we don't have too much time to describe all the best practices in detail. And now I'm going to describe the results of the questionnaires. I have to say that we extract the questions with more than 10 answers of in each BP. The first one is how relevant do you consider the objective of the good practice in your region? And you can see that the results in especially in Coimbra and in Slovenia are very high, and they consider that this good practice is very relevant for them. The second question was how relevant are the results achieved by the good practice for your region? And we have to highlight the same two good practice, B3 and B7, because the stakeholders answer that in both cases are very, very relevant. In the case of question 3 is is the reported system for evaluating the result of the GP applicable or of the interest of your region? And in this case, the stakeholders answer that mainly that they don't know. They can answer this question. The number 4 is the stakeholders' participation adequate in your case, and in this case the answers are different. Mainly they answer yes, but in B6, that is the best practice from Ireland, they answer 7 of them answer that they don't know. In the case of question 5, if are you interested in the assessment instrument used in the GP, or would it be useful in your region, we can highlight the answers of the P3, because in Coimbra they think that the answer is yes, they are very interested. But in the other cases, they are not sure. They don't know if the assessment instrument with used is useful or not. The question number 6 is how important is the social impact of the results of the GP in the region? And as you can see, all the stakeholders of each region answer that is important or very important for them. And if we now we are going to establish the impact, and in question number 7 we ask for the stakeholders if how important is the health impact of the result for the GP, and in general they answer that is important or very important, but we can highlight the result of the onboard, and because they answer that is not as important. The number 8 is how important is the employment impact of the results, and as you can see in the graphs, in general is not very important, or they don't know exactly if the employment impact is important or not. Number 9 is about the applicability of the results to people with functional diversity, and in general is the answers are that the results are quite a lot applicable for them. If we ask about the applicability of the results to people with social disadvantage in each region, in B3, the stakeholders thought that is very applicable, or at least quite applicable. But in the others, the answers are quite different, because in B5 and B6, the answer that is little applicable, and B4 and B7, it's between quite a lot applicable and very applicable. If we pass to number 11, it's that is the results are related with a gender perspective appropriate to the approach of your region. The answers show that they don't know if the best practice is incorporate this gender perspective. Also, if we ask about the time needed to implement the GP in each region, in general, they don't know how to evaluate the time. Number 13 is if in each region, how can we count the participation of the similar type of organization of properly developed the GP? And in general, the answer is yes, they can. The 40th is if they think that this GP can inspire a public policy in each region. and they think in all the cases that yes, it's this GP could be inspired something with our public ministries or regional ministries. Number 15 is how good can we evaluate the amount of resources for the GP. And the results show that for some stakeholders, mainly in B4, B5, and B7, it's difficult to evaluate the number of the resources they need to implement it. And number 70th is about the difference in support structure and process to prevent the reuse of the GP. In general, the answers are that the stakeholders don't know how to answer to this question, or that just doesn't apply in the case. But we can highlight the B4 answers. The B4 is from Aarhus municipality, and they said in some cases that yes. The number 80th is related to the transferability. And in general, the results are that the good practice could be transferred to other regional reality. The 90th is how important, the 90th and the 20th are related with ICTs. In this case, the first one is how important was the use of the technologies for the implementation of the GPs. And we can see that in B4, B5, B6, and B7 are important or very important. And in B3, that is the best practice from Coimbra, is not as important. And finally, if we ask about the application of this GP in the region, if involve the use of other new ICTs technologies, in all the cases, B3, B4, B6, and B7, they answer yes. But in B5, that is the one from Hamburg, the stakeholders don't know if this the application of the GP involves more new ICTs technologies. And this is the summary of the results of the questionnaire. If you have any question, please let us know by the chat or after other presentations.
Thank you very much, Amaya. That was very interesting and very informative to see those results coming back, and maybe there may be some questions in the follow-on Q&A session. Can I just remind anybody, if they have a question, if they can please post the question in the chat box or in the Q&A box, and we can pick that up after Alcibar's presentation, which will be next, and that will be the end of the first session. And at this stage, I would like to welcome Alcibar Megara, again from the University of Deusto, and she's going to speak on friendly cities for all, the civic engagement in the field of urban accessibility. And by way of background, Atzabar is a professor in economics and business studies at the Faculty of Law, the coordinator of innovation and service learning, and a member of Leola legal clinical team in the Faculty of Law. She's the lead researcher of the research team Social Development, Economics and Innovation for People, EDASP for short, which conducts 3 lines of research. The first on social and solidarity-based economy, entrepreneurship and social innovation for sustainable development, based on accumulated expertise in organizations of social and solidarity-based economy, its values and its principles, its economic, social and environmental impact for a balanced and cohesive growth. Also on the construction of a legal economic governance and management environment of all people, combining legal, economic and social perspectives, especially focusing on the European zone. And thirdly, on service learning as a transformative pedagogical tool as an element of building committed citizenship. It's within this framework that she works with organizations and projects linked to innovations. And there's been a number of those projects, including the European SI Drive, Social Innovation, Driving Force for Social Change. She is also the chair of Sir Bicas Fundacio, the promoter of solitary-based service learning in the Basque Country, which promotes this initiative at intercommunity level for its scalability, sustainability, and international outreach. With that, Aitziber, I would like to hand the floor over to yourself.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share our experience. We had two concepts of international movements in this project: citizen science, public participation in scientific research, people making science, and what is service learning, an educational approach where students not only learn, but also provide a service to the community. One example, our project. Friendly Cities for Everyone aims to promote civic awareness in the field of urban accessibility. Teenagers and people with disability mapping their surroundings, sharing the results in OpenStreetMap, and make suggestions to change, to improve, writing and accessibility reports, and again. This initiative involves public authorities, high schools, social entities, and research teams. Educators want to provide their students with opportunities to participate in initiatives where they learn by doing. Social partners want to claim accessibility in inclusive terms. Scientists from engineering, law, and education want to obtain better data to estimate sustainability indicators to measure the civic and academic engagement. So, interdisciplinarity and cooperative learning are essential in this proposal with a collective challenge. And what do we do? There are different levels on research methodologies. On one hand, the action research led by the high school students with the people with reduced mobility about urban accessibility. And by the other hand, our own action research about them, their perceptions. There are some steps that we can see, all with process of reflection action. These ones are for training to recollecting data with a social and technical briefing, and the other ones to processing and sharing information. Workshops, people with disabilities, educators, volunteers, and high school students take part in a workshop on social inclusion and OpenStreetMap. Combined with a field work with mixed groups, teenagers and people with mobility difficulties walk around the city together. They locate points of difficult access, alternative routes, using a piece of paper with the map, film papers, photos, and developing their sense of direction and coping with the environment. Then they map these points in OpenStreetMap. Using this free software, they edit digital maps based on geolocation using a traffic light color code for each point. When they upload the data, it is automatically displayed in the app, available free for anyone, enable the generation of friendly routes, and the students submit accessibility reports to public administrations and to their community with a collective return. The participants analyze the experience individually and collectively, reinforcing their reflection about accessibility in connection with their actions developed in the mapping fieldwork. The results achieved during these years are promising. Students and volunteers are more engaged to make a difference. Almost 1,000 action researchers, 856 students from 11 high schools, 10% of the students have changed their opinion about the relation between urban accessibility and disability. Accessibility is not only disability, this concerns to everyone. 90% have changed their vision about their neighborhood. 75% have changed their perception of people with disabilities. In many cases, students have had people close, friends, family, with mobility difficulties. They know people in that situation, but have not seen the environment from their perspective. Stakeholders have acquired up-to-date evidence for their lobbying actions. Almost 3,000 stores, portals, and sidewalks evaluated in Great Bilbao. 4 square kilometers are surveyed. Sidewalks are mostly green, but portals and stores are mostly red. An example. What is the meaning of this? Is enough that municipalities fix these sidewalks or provide parking? Students realize about it and have been discussed the difference between public and private, the need of a collective awareness. Researchers have improved their knowledge about accessibility indicators, sustainable indicators, civic and academic engagement, systematization of the reflection phase in every action. Always, even if there is the same school, but in different editions, the what improves through the analysis of the how. Each case has been different. For example, the students asking to do the report indoor of their own high school, making films, spreading, and leading acts of celebration, for example. Or the ramp made by one high school in their main entrance after the assertion of their own students. Here are 2 examples about questions answered by students. Social perception connected with disability. Or, for example, one student said, before, I didn't care about the barriers there are in Portugalete and the difficulties that those barriers cause to people with reduced mobility. Thanks to this project, I realized that this is something we should change because we all have the right to access any building, shop, without help from anyone. What are the strengths of the research? Interdisciplinarity and network, taking coherence between interdisciplinary of different fields of research, of different experts by experience from the community and on academic subjects, leadership and trust relationship, pilot studies with the help of method, tools, and publication, and innovation on social, educational, technological, citizen science, and the model of service learning, connecting all. Fostering engagement through action research is the strength of the project. And in this project, there are some key elements, key protagonists. Thanks Diego Lastra to begin to inspire us during his life and now through his memory. Thanks to their memory followers, because finding ways to engage the youth effectively to be the motor of change, as Marian Andres Acha says, one of our volunteers, is not easy. It is just essential. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Aitzabar. That was very informative on that particular piece of work. There were a couple of questions that have been posted in the Q&A, but they seem to have disappeared before I'm able to ask them, and I think they were going to be asked of Amaya. But anyway, maybe just whilst we sort of, in case the people want to replace them in there, we can still ask them. But maybe if I could sort of turn to the first three panelists by way of a quick question. Looking at what you've actually spoken about in terms of the project and the whole initiatives for that social participation, one of the things that I'm very mindful of at present is COVID-19 and the impact that that is actually having on the social engagement that all citizens can have with each other. Maybe a quick reflection from some of the panelists in terms of how they have seen that impacting on the project, but more importantly, maybe how have the different regions responded to that so as to ensure the participation of the elderly or the vulnerable or the disabled within their societies and within their communities? And has any use been made of digital technology for that? Maybe Amaya, could I put that one to you first?
Yes, John. In general, all the regions answer properly to the questionnaire, and I think that in all the cases, the participation in this the presented good practices are so it is demonstrated, but I think in some cases the stakeholders that answer the questionnaires didn't have enough data to answer about the impact mainly, and about the number of the resources they need to replicate the GP in other region. And all of them except Coimbra, that Coimbra doesn't need any ICTs to implement the presented good practice in this domain. All of them answer that is important the ICTs technologies to improve the social participation. In my opinion, the ICTs that are needed in these cases are not very sophisticated or are not the newest ones, but they think that they are very important, and they saw with their answers that ICTs are a key question to improve the social participation. I don't know if I answered your question or your reflections.
No, that's fine. So it is. The question here from Grania Komisky. Is there a reason that the results shown in the presentation did not include all the good practices assessed, such as the Bizkaia project?
About this one, about the achievers presentation, I don't know.
I'm not too sure which one Grania is referring to. Maybe if Grania wants to place an additional post on it, we may find out. But she just asked, is there a reason that the results shown did not include? Now, that may have been for Eitzeber. I'm not too sure.
I know that in Bizkaia we have another good practice that is related with social participation, but this good practice is cross domain, and it's decided to present it in another webinar.
Okay.
Because
right.
it's not only related with social participation.
Okay, right.
But it's not because the stakeholders didn't complete the questionnaire because the results are with less than 10 answers or whatever. It's because the good practices related with more than one domain will be presented in another webinar.
Okay, that's fine. And thank you very much. I think we have a short video at this stage. There we go. If anybody hasn't been to Bilbao or Biscay before, I'm sure that video of it will actually, as we would say in Ireland, whet your appetite to actually go to it. And I know I've been fortunate to be to Bilbao a couple of times. Fantastic city and fantastic people. So they are. We want to move now to session 3, which is going to look at social participation in Bizkaia and how it is articulated. And we will have 3 speakers here. We will have Asier Alustiza Capananga, Manuel Minero, and Yolanda Filat. And we're going to start with Asier, who is going to talk to us about the social participation in Bizkaia. By way of background to Asier, Asier he's a graduate in business management and administration from the University of the Basque Country, and he's got his master's degree in human resources from Deusto Business School. In 2011, he started his professional career at Well Air Engine Components and Technichapa, both part of the Ormathabal Group. He continued his experience in Gestamp North Division in the UK at Cannock from 2012 to 2014, and has always been in the area of human resources. From 2015, he took on the role of assistant manager at Hyundai SL and later at Hyundai SL. Since 2019, he's been the general director for the promotion of personal autonomy of the Provincial Council of Bizkaia. Asier, I pass the floor to you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I hope not to have problem to share now the screen. So, wait a sec. No. Things that happens in direct. Now. Okay. Can you see the screen properly or?
Asier, not yet. You should do.
Not yet?
Yeah. You should change the visualization, please.
Yes, I have no the option now.
I can see the option in the higher bar.
Wait a sec.
Okay, no, this is you.
This is me, yeah. Maybe now. I know why. I don't know why. I have not the option that has. I have had those problems before, but now I'm direct again. Have again, but I have not the tool to change.
No worries, Asier. Let's do it like this.
Yes.
No problem. Okay.
Okay, no problems. Yeah, no problems.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, I'm sorry because the problems we have. And also I would like to thank the Minister for Social Action for having been able to find time in this schedule to participate in this event as one of the project's promoters, because he is very involved in it and has managed to free up a space in his already busy agenda, which has now practically collapsed due to the pandemic scenario we are experiencing, and that avoid to share this event altogether. I'm going to introduce this third part of the session in which we will develop the domain we must work on today, social participation. To be honest, probably is the densest part, the presentation of the experts and direct actors of the practices that we are going to present here today. But I hope that we do not get lost within the density and that it serves as an approach to what comes afterwards. As I say, longevity is a social success without precedent in Bizkaia and Europe, the result of a scientific progress and the levels of well-being achieved by our territory. From this perspective, we face the challenge of updating our policies, aware that the physical and social environments are key determinants of healthy, independent, and active aging. To this end, we consider participation to be a key element. Although it is true that civic dialogue had taken root in Bizkaia several years earlier, as I will explain below, but in 2010, the Basque Country took an important step towards formalizing civic dialogue by drawing up the called or known Act 6/2016 on the Basque Country's third social sector, or it is known also like the Basque Country's third social sector law. This law established the right to participation of third sector entities in public policies that concern them under the principle of civil dialogue. But when we are talking about when we are referring to the third sector, what we are talking about? The third sector entities are understood as those integrated by citizen initiative and non-profit organizations which promote the general interest and the defense of the rights of all people, with special attention to those who are in a situation of greater vulnerability. The civil dialogue is a formal process of dialogue and collaboration between the public sector and the organizations and networks of the third social sectors to provide guidance, promote, and evaluate social policies and other initiatives in their field of social intervention. I could go on for long time, but as the time is limited and the aim is you to know the mechanisms we have in place in Bizkaia for social participation, I will only bring up one or two other elements. The same law I mentioned says that Basque public administration with responsibility in the field of social intervention is the Provincial Council of Bizkaia, and specifically the Department of Social Action. This law covered the instruments that Bizkaia had to take into account social participation in its governance. The fact is that the government of Bizkaia, despite the time has gone by and the people responsible for governing have changed, the style of building social policies has not changed. We build for, but above all, with the people who need them. The social promote is built especially through the instruments of government of Bizkaia, especially with two instruments, the Civil Dialogue Bureau and the Elderly People's Council. The style with which we build social policies in Bizkaia makes us to work together with society. As an example, I know that Sergio has talked about, but you can say again that it's a very good example. We have the plan for the participation and quality of life of people with disabilities in Bizkaia, which the expert Yolanda Filat will talk to us about later. Another example has been how in 2020, through the Elderly People Council, we work together the opinion of society and take into account when preparing the plan to promote personal autonomy and care for elderly in Bizkaia. But the dimension of participation doesn't stop there. There are decisions that each person makes on the basis of our culture, customs, characters, taste, and characteristics. Those decisions may be more or less important for our lives, but they are decisions that each of us makes and which must be respected. But there are moments in our lives when, due to the circumstances, we need support in order to be able to excuse the decisions we make, or when we are not able to make the most basic decisions for daily life. From the government of Bizkaia, we are working to be able to advance in this management of these situations, in which any of us may one day find ourselves. It's a complex situation that families, public administration, and entities working in the social file must understand and improve their management. Our colleague, an expert in the file, Lourdes, will talk to us about it later. So now I will focus in the two of the participation instruments promoted by the regional government of Bizkaia. First of all, Civil Dialogue Bureau. In Bizkaia, since 2005 and through the legislatures, progress has been made in the dialogue and in the configuration of a framework and model of collaboration that in the file of social services, it has the characteristics of a strategic alliance for the planning, design, and management of services. Finally, after a long process, in January 2012, the Bizkaia Civil Dialogue Bureau was formalized and regulated. The Bizkaia Civil Dialogue Bureau is a shared working space and an instrument of dialogue and cooperation. It has to be operational and bidirectional between the Social Action Department of the Regional Government of Bizkaia and the third sector social action organizations and the networks with a presence in Bizkaia. The regulations established two targets for the Bureau: promote social policies, social participation, governance, and ultimately social cohesion and the inclusion of the citizens of Bizkaia. And the second goal is to giving way to the right through the organizations to the people, families, target groups and communities, and protagonists of social intervention to express their opinion and participate in public policies. This framework of collaboration is expressed among other aspects like dialogue and permanent relationship, the configurations, thanks to the collaboration with the social initiative of the networks of attention to the situations of exclusion and protection, disability, and to a great extent of dependence. The participation of organizations and networks in the guidance and evaluation of the Country Council's action in the field of social actions through councils and working groups for the preparation, monitoring, and evaluation of the strategic plan and sector plans. And the last, the promotion of the department, supporting and collaborating in other activities of general interest carried out by the organizations. Second instrument, Elderly People's Council. I'm not going to go explain in depth because we have no time, and then the Manuel Merino, the Elderly People's Council's president, will explain you better and more in depth. But I would like to say that I would like to make a small introduction, okay? If you remember, at the beginning of my speech, I mentioned that in 2016, the Basque Country took a great step forward in formalizing the civil dialogue by articulating the Basque Third Social Sector Act. But I have also mentioned that this fact reinforced a working model already implemented in Bizkaia for a long time. I say that because the Bizkaia Council for the Elderly was created in 1999. The Council for the Elderly in the historical territory of Bizkaia is a forum for the participation and representation of people over 60 entities, associations and organizations related to the elderly in order to collaborate in the planning, execution, and monitoring of policies and actions aimed at achieving the well-being of this sector in Bizkaia citizens. This body includes the 75% of the 136 entities registered in the register and which directly or through their federations represent more than 50,000 members. This data is very significant, even more if we take into account that in Bizkaia we have 136 entities in 112 municipalities. This is the figure, which makes clear the importance of social participations in Bizkaia. Since its creation, it has evolved with different configurations, different regulatory frameworks, different dynamics. And from 2010 especially, this council has been meeting point of society and administration to do, to share, and to build. The substantial modification incorporated that year in 2010 because it was a very important milestone in the field of the participation of elderly citizens in elderly entities of elderly Bizkaia in consultative body. Its presidency was entrusted to an elderly person, and since then it has been and is currently accepted as a reference body in its field. But the council, like society, advanced, develops, and matures over time. For this reason, on 1st of September 2020, a restructuring was formalized that reflects a reality that has been forged for some time, and that is that the activity of the plenary session of the council is complemented by the activity of the working committees whose members exceed the number of entities participating in the plenary session.
Asier,
Yes,
could I invite you to maybe bring
yes,
to an end, please?
Yeah, I'm finishing. It also reflects the technical secretariat, which has proved to be important for the smooth running of its activity. This change has been done together. For example, we work all together in the new decree. The people make some give some ideas to this policy, and we share with them the decision, and we say which one we included and which one we didn't include it, and we give all the reasons about that. So I don't going to extend myself any further, and I give way to Manuel Merino, President of the Council for the Elderly. And thank you very much, Eskerrik asko. I'm sorry because my technical problems.
Thank you very much, Asier, and I appreciate the technical problems. I fall foul to that at times as well myself. The next presenter on this session on social participation in Bizkaia will be Manuel Moreno from the Council for the Elderly, and he's going to talk about the current activities of the Council. By way of background, Manuel Moreno Pastor, his academic training has been linked to the humanities, communication, and business management. His professional life has been in teaching, journalism, and the direction and management of non-profit organizations. Manuel has been a participant and promoter of social projects, among others, for the care of dependent elderly people. Recently, Manuel was distinguished by the Basque Third Sector Platform with the Sarin Saria Award for his contribution to this sector. He is currently president of the Council for the Elderly in Bizkaia. Manuel, I pass the floor to you. And maybe could I just remind you to keep to the time, please?
Thank you. Thank you, John. Good morning, John. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to explain briefly what is and how work the Council of Senior Citizens of Bizkaia, that Sergio and especially Asier have referred to. I believe the Council means, in fact, an important challenge for social participation and for the implication of senior citizens in public policies. The Council has been recently reorganized for increase its role in the Bizkaia society. In this moment, the work of the Council is a little complicated because the pandemic. The Council of Senior Citizens of Bizkaia is an institution promoted by the provincial administration of Bizkaia within the framework of a governance open to citizen participation as a form of civil dialogue. The Council brings together representatives of the organization of the elderly of the territory, as well as the institution responsible for designing and implementing social policies related to the elderly. The Council makes it possible for the organization of older people to be aware of and to advise on institutional social policies, to express their priorities, and to contribute their point of view, as well as to propose plan and initiative. It also allows the public institution open to participation in its policies, to listen to the social organization, to attend to their demands, and finally to support the association themselves in their project of social transformation. The Council is structured in 4 levels: the Presidency, the Plenary, the Permanent Committee, and the working groups or working committees. I will just mention 2 of them that are particularly relevant for social participation. The Plenary is the Council's. It is made up of 13 members. 3 of them represent the County Council, and the other 10 belong to Association of Senior Citizens in Bizkaia. Therefore, this last one, the social part of the plenary, have a notably greater specific weight in the plenary. Agreements are taken by consensus, and when it is not possible, the members have the same influence on the final decision. The Minister for Social Action in Bizkaia, Sergio, is member of the council, but the president is a person belonging of the civil society, obviously an elderly person like me, who lead and represent the plenary and the council. The plenary submit those strategic matters it considers complex and relevant to the working groups or working committees. The working groups are mainly composed of about 12 other people and are supported by technical staff. They study the issues, draw up report and propose initiative, which are then presented to the plenary, approved if appropriate, and implemented. At the moment, there are 3 working groups. One works and promotes the social participation of the elderly and the transformation of their into friendly environment. A second group follows up and contributes to the regional plan for the care of the elderly. And a third one studies and works to raise awareness of old age as a value of society. A full working group about to be set up with the collaboration of scientific societies and universities will aim to monitor the key variables related to old age in Bizkaia as an instrument to guide the work of the Council. In this way, the Bizkaia Council of Senior Citizens aims to become an inspiring and generating instrument for policies benefiting the elderly in Bizkaia, in the search for social cohesion with the active participation of the elderly, and through civil dialogue. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Manuel. Very concise, so it was. We're going to now move to, it's going to be a presentation from Yolanda. And Yolanda is not able to be with us, but we have a video presentation from Yolanda, as I understand it. Yolanda Filat Delgado, she's a graduate in law from the University of Navarra with a master in consultancy and management of organizational development processes from the University of Valladolid. She's a consultant in organizational development, strategy, planning, and social research, self-employed, and independent professional. Since 2004, she's been working in support in the field of disability and elderly people, of social organizations for the representation and care of people with disabilities at both regional and national level. The group also collaborates with public administrations in different projects, specifically with the Provincial Council of Bizkaia, the Basque Government, and the Institute for the Elderly and Social Services on a national level. I will now sort of turn to Federica and ask Federica if she could maybe begin the video from Yolanda, please.
Yo os voy a hablar del Plan para la Participación y Calidad de Vida para las Personas con Discapacidad en Bizkaia como una referencia, buena práctica y referencia en participación social en dos vertientes, tanto en lo que es la participación de las propias personas con discapacidad como en lo que es la participación de las organizaciones sociales con las cuales el Departamento de Acción Social ha venido construyendo históricamente las políticas en distintos ámbitos y en concreto en el ámbito de la discapacidad. Históricamente, el Departamento de Acción Social ha estado comprometido con la promoción, con la atención a las personas con discapacidad, orientado a su participación y calidad de vida. Y además asumiendo un rol de liderazgo, de impulso en esta construcción. Pero no lo ha hecho de una forma cualquiera, sino que lo ha hecho desde esta construcción consensuada, compartida, de mutuo reconocimiento y de la aportación de valor del tercer sector social de las entidades sociales. Entidades que representan históricamente a las personas con discapacidad y sus familias en el territorio de Bizkaia. Como herramientas para impulsar estas políticas, el Departamento de Acción Social junto con las entidades han venido consensuando un determinado modelo de atención y promoción a estas personas en la atención a sus necesidades. Se trata del modelo para la participación y calidad de vida de las personas con discapacidad. Es un modelo que entronca directamente con el marco de derechos para las personas con discapacidad, en concreto con la Convención de las Naciones Unidas sobre los Derechos de las Personas con Discapacidad, y que surge en este mismo planteamiento de participación social desde un mutuo conocimiento y aprendizaje y consenso entre el departamento y las entidades. En este modelo, básicamente, lo que se plantea es una forma de entender y de defender a las personas con discapacidad donde se les concibe como ciudadanos y ciudadanas de pleno derecho. Esto supone que tienen los mismos derechos que cualquier otra persona y, por tanto, tienen que poder participar activamente en la comunidad, en todos los entornos de la comunidad. Desde este modelo, esto supone tres cosas principalmente. Lo primero, que las personas se crean ellas mismas que pueden participar. A esto le llamamos empoderamiento de las propias personas. Es decir, que las personas aprendan estrategias, confíen en sí mismas, tengan seguridad para poder defender, ejercer sus derechos. En segundo lugar, un sistema de apoyos, de servicios, de recursos que propicie, que facilite esta participación, este ejercicio de los derechos. Esto supone el desarrollo también pues, de servicios, de prestaciones económicas, de productos de apoyo, ayudas técnicas que faciliten esa autonomía personal, esa participación en la comunidad. Y en tercer lugar, indispensable, que el entorno tenga condiciones que permitan esa participación de las personas, condiciones que sean inclusivas, condiciones de accesibilidad universal, de diseño para todas las personas, de igualdad de oportunidades, de no discriminación. En estos tres focos es desde donde surge este modelo de entender a las personas como protagonistas de su propia vida y de su propio recorrido, protagonistas activas y personas, ciudadanos de pleno derecho. Este modelo se consensúa, se construye conjuntamente en una reflexión y un aprendizaje compartido entre el Departamento de Acción Social y las entidades sociales en el territorio de Bizkaia. Y se ha venido plasmando en los distintos planes que se han elaborado, que se han aprobado aquí en el territorio. Ya en el año 2010 se aprobó un primer plan para la participación y calidad de vida de las personas con discapacidad en Bizkaia que recoge este modelo y impulsa una serie de acciones, de líneas estratégicas para avanzar en ello. Y en el segundo plan, para los años 2016 y 2019, vuelve a recoger, a impulsar este modelo con un planteamiento que fomente, que facilite la operatividad en las acciones que plantea, así como una mejor metodología y dinámica de trabajo compartido con las entidades en su seguimiento, aplicación, evaluación y desarrollo. El segundo plan para la participación y calidad de vida para las personas con discapacidad en Bizkaia recoge básicamente 5 ejes estratégicos que entroncan directamente con este impulso de la participación social, tanto en relación con el impulso, con lo que supone la participación en primera persona de las propias personas con discapacidad, como en lo que supone el impulso de la participación, el diálogo social y la colaboración entre las entidades sociales y el departamento. Estos 5 ejes son estos. El primero está orientado a la vida autónoma y a la inclusión y a la participación activa en la comunidad. Recoge una serie de líneas de actuación y objetivos dirigidos a desarrollar apoyos y servicios para prevenir las situaciones de dependencia, para promover la autonomía personal, para promover itinerarios hacia la vida independiente de estas personas y también todo lo que tiene que ver con los productos de apoyo, ayudas técnicas que puedan requerir para poder participar en la comunidad, tanto para desenvolverse en su propio domicilio como para poder salir por su barrio, estudiar, trabajar y desarrollar una vida activa. El segundo eje está alineado y recoge una serie de acciones relativas a impulsar en el territorio de Bizkaia condiciones de accesibilidad universal, de inclusión, de igualdad de oportunidades, de no discriminación. Esto es fundamental para poder transformar las condiciones del entorno para que sea un entorno inclusivo que permita la participación de las personas. Además, entendiendo esa transformación de manera que se rompan todo tipo de barreras de comprensión, barreras arquitectónicas, barreras también actitudinales, porque hay muchas veces que precisamente lo que excluye a las personas son elementos bastante intangibles que tienen que ver con cuestiones de privación de su igualdad, estigma social o discriminación. En este bloque se recogen una serie de líneas de actuación orientadas también a transformar la sociedad, a su sensibilización hacia las propias personas y a la ruptura también de estas barreras. El tercer eje se centra en todo lo que tiene que ver con la universalidad de los servicios sociales para poder atender también las necesidades de apoyo y soporte que puedan tener tanto estas personas como sus familias. Tienen que adaptarse estos servicios y recursos a las necesidades, a su evolución en su itinerario vital y pueden ser más o menos intensas o extensas y en distintos ámbitos de apoyo. Atención diurna, atención residencial, apoyo también en lo que es la dimensión de ocio y tiempo libre de estas personas como elemento básico de participación en la comunidad, servicios en el ámbito sociolaboral, socioeducativo, todo lo que tiene también que ver con el soporte a las familias, los apoyos a las familias, y una dimensión también muy, muy importante que sería la del apoyo al autogobierno de las personas, dimensión esencial en el tema que estamos hablando de participación social, puesto que las propias personas pueden tener también determinadas limitaciones que restrinjan también su capacidad de tomar decisiones y requieren apoyos para poder ejercer esos derechos. El cuarto eje tiene que ver con la metodología de intervención con estas personas por parte de los equipos profesionales que operan con ellas y que actúan con ellas. Y es un eje que tiene que ver con la calidad y la planificación centrada en y con la persona como metodología de intervención, en el procedimiento de intervención con estas personas. Cuando entran o acceden a un servicio, desde la acogida, la valoración, el desarrollo, la planificación de sus necesidades y la coordinación también de ese caso. respetando y teniendo siempre en el centro a la persona, elaborando esa planificación con ella y también coordinando la intervención de todos los agentes que puedan intervenir en esos apoyos, tanto de la administración como de las entidades sociales. Y el último eje es el dirigido a la colaboración, al diálogo social y a la colaboración prioritaria entre la administración, el Departamento de Acción Social y las entidades sociales. Se impulsa dentro de este eje todo lo que es un ámbito de co-creación y de articulación conjunta del sistema, la colaboración también, la apuesta por la colaboración prioritaria de estas entidades en la gestión y en la prestación de los servicios y apoyos a estas personas y el diálogo social para poder, establecer nuevos recorridos y nuevos retos de mejora de una manera conjunta. Para poder realizar el seguimiento y la evaluación de este segundo plan, se establece una metodología novedosa que se ha aplicado en este periodo de vigencia entre 2016 y 2019. Ha sido una metodología a través de 4 mesas de trabajo para su aplicación más operativa, su seguimiento y su evaluación. Se articularon 4 mesas en distintas temáticas muy vinculadas a los ejes que os acabo de comentar, en los que se generó distintas dinámicas de trabajo, siempre con la participación tanto del Departamento de Acción Social, con participación de personas del equipo de dirección y de la parte técnica, y también con la participación de más de 20 entidades dentro del territorio, tanto con participaciones de personas de perfil gerencial como otras personas de los equipos técnicos. Con todo ello se ha estado trabajando durante estos 4 años y han surgido una serie de proyectos y distintos impulsos. Entre otros, os destaco un proyecto, que es el proyecto de inclusión, que precisamente ha venido a generar también un modelo compartido en lo que sería el modelo de gestión avanzada en lo que es la gestión de los servicios de responsabilidad pública del departamento. Y con este mismo enfoque de participación social se está elaborando en el momento actual el nuevo plan de participación y calidad de vida para las personas con discapacidad en Bizkaia para el próximo periodo temporal, y también con la intención de generar un salto cualitativo en este enfoque de participación social en distintos frentes. El primero, frentes que serían retos. El primero sería la propia participación en primera persona de las personas con discapacidad en lo que es la aplicación, el seguimiento y la evaluación del plan. Todo lo que tiene que ver con medir su satisfacción e incluso medir y conocer la autopercepción que ellas puedan tener sobre los cambios que ha podido haber en la sociedad, esas condiciones más inclusivas y de accesibilidad para su participación. Otro reto que también se plantea dentro de este nuevo plan es poder generar también una metodología, avanzar en una metodología de co-creación de distintos proyectos, iniciativas, nuevas respuestas hacia las personas con discapacidad y sus familias, en un trabajo muy coordinado, una dinámica muy coordinada entre el departamento y las entidades, en todas las fases en las que surge un proyecto: la ideación, el diseño, la ejecución, la aplicación, la evaluación, el seguimiento de ese proyecto. Otro reto cualitativo que también se pretende establecer dentro de este plan es todo lo que tiene que ver con una mayor participación y compromiso transversal de otros agentes clave dentro del territorio para generar condiciones inclusivas y apoyos también para las personas con discapacidad. Claro, cuando hablamos de condiciones inclusivas no hablamos solo de servicios sociales, hablamos también de que las personas puedan participar en el empleo, tengan una educación inclusiva, tengan también determinadas ayudas, medidas de acción positiva en el ámbito fiscal, en el ámbito de la justicia, el ocio, la cultura, el deporte, y esto supone también implicar un compromiso por parte de otros ámbitos, de otras administraciones. En este sentido, el propio proceso de elaboración de este plan está generando también una participación muy rica a través también de entrevistas y reuniones con otras áreas, otros departamentos de cultura, euskera, hacienda, vivienda, educación, sanidad, de otras administraciones públicas. Otro reto que se plantea este nuevo plan en esta línea de participación es también avanzar en una mejor operatividad en esta metodología compartida de planificación con centrada en y con la persona con discapacidad, avanzando también en este modelo de coordinación del caso en una coordinación real entre las entidades y el departamento. Y como último punto, el último reto sería pues, seguir avanzando en un mayor dinamismo dentro de ese eje de diálogo social y de coordinación y colaboración entre las entidades sociales y el Departamento de Acción Social.
That was very informative from Yolanda, and it's unfortunate she's not here, so we could thank her personally for her presentation. I'd like to thank everybody for being with us. We are now moving into our last session, and the session is from Lourdes Serban of Bizkaia. I think, and I apologize for getting it wrong. And she is going to talk about the independence and does it prevent us from directing our lives and how to prepare for care. Again, this will be another video, so it will. And by way of a very brief background for Lourdes, Lourdes, she's her degree in medicine and surgery, a master's degree in applied social gerontology from the University of Barcelona, and in bioethics from the Complutense University of Madrid. She's currently the head of the Assessment and Guidance Service, Dependency and Disability, at the Regional Government of Bizkaia and Social and Healthcare Coordinator. She's the President of the Ethics Committee for Social Intervention in the Bizkaia, and she's a member of the Basque Country's Coordinating Committee for Ethics. I maybe ask Federica to share the video from Lourdes, who's going to talk to us now.
Buenos días, Egunon.
Good morning. First of all, I am sorry, my English is quite poor, but I'll try to do the best I can. The title of this paper is Participation and Self-Determination, also in situation of dependency, disability and vulnerability. This paper simply aims to give a few brush strokes on the ethical aspects involved in the participation and decision-making of people who, due to their situation of dependency, disability, or vulnerability, are sometimes left out of the ideas of participation and decision-making about their own lives. We start by talking about dependence and especially about interdependence. Dependence, defined in a global way, is the need we have for other people. The need we have for other people to cover some fundamental aspects of our life, which otherwise could not be satisfied. It is a multidimensional phenomenon, therefore with many aspects in which we may need that support. Sometimes, for example, financial, other times functional, and always emotional. Moreover, it's a dynamic and changing process and with a different duration because people can have accidents, pathological processes, and different situations that will make us temporarily dependent. And without a doubt, the dependence is linked to our biography. Because human beings are viviparous and therefore constitutionally dependent and interdependent at all times. We need for deficit support in activities of daily life, which can be fully satisfied at any given time, but also with needs of being and personal self-realization. These needs are the ones that are shaping our biography and are the ones that all human beings are covered and develop in the relationship with the others. The others, others, are therefore a necessary resource for personal development. They are the protection to minimize vulnerability or risks of suffering by covering my needs deficits. And they are the support for developing autonomy and independence. And we must take into account two ideas. The family, which will be the private space for interaction based on trust that inspires commitment to the well-being, protection, and personal development of these members. And the police, that is the space of the citizenry, the place of protection where it is possible to preserve oneself from dangers and obtain the necessary resources for personal development. For the reason, it is only when the dependent person suffers a situation of exclusion or marginalization that the risk of harm and suffering occurs. It will be necessary that in this context of citizenship, we include all the members of the city, also the dependent people, also the people with serious risk of exclusion, that all of them can participate. And all this based on the dignity of the human being who considers him like an end in itself, whether it is valued or not. And therefore, it cannot be used alone as a medium, and it is able to determine its own purposes. And considering the equal dignity of all human beings that claims and demands consideration and respect. However, we are faced with the majority vision of the human being as a superior being due to one or more of the following characteristics: rationality, capacity for self-determination, language capability. This vision also has deep cultural roots. In Aristotle, who defines a human being like a rational animal with language and politics, and in Kant, who defines it like free self-regulator. But it is an incomplete conception, which nevertheless has its influence also on international declaration and regulation designed to recognize rights of vulnerable people. As Marije Goikoetxea refers, they are formulated by people who are autonomous and capable in relation to other dependent, disabled people. People who have something negative or pathological. They define dependency as a negative that if we cannot eliminate or cure it, we are obligated to alleviate the life of those who suffer from it. In the face of this, the need for reflection seems evident. On capacities, that is what we are capable of doing and being with the necessary support and resources, about our self-insufficiency associated with the interdependence we have mentioned, on the need of recognition by the others in our faculties and qualities, where all people are or can be dependent and can contribute with learning. Let us now comment on the personal life project. Each person, including elderly and those who are in a situation of dependency, have the experience and therefore the corresponding knowledge of what certain living conditions entail. So we can say that exists the obligation of each person to respect his or her own values and to develop the life project he or she has drawn up in accordance with them. Because no person is the same as another, but each person has his or her own life project. It is therefore essential to encourage participation and support for our own significant life projects. And biography is the essential reason for uniqueness, and this becomes even more significant as an elderly person, because more things have happened in their life. Therefore, we have an objective: to develop the autonomous capacity of all to develop a happy and responsible life project, taking into account their own capacities to look for the right external condition to develop themselves as much as possible personally and socially. That is to say, not only what the person does, but also what they can do and be with the necessary support and resources. Another point I would like to focus on is the right to control our life. People have a right to their own life, also when they get older and also when they are people with a serious cognitive impairment. Autonomy is not understood as a single or fixed capacity. People can have different levels of autonomy at different times, so our ability to make decisions may vary. A very significant example of is the process of dementia, in which people progressively lose their abilities, but a diagnosis alone does not imply the loss of all our faculties. Therefore, we do not give up on working on the basis of autonomy with seriously affected people, identifying opportunities and support that will allow them to exercise their abilities. Autonomy is also understood as a right that when a person is not competent to make decisions and act, is exercised indirectly through others who must decide, taking into account the values and preferences of the person being represented. Professor Seoane talks about 3 dimensions of autonomy, and I think it's important to take them as a reference because sometimes we may forget this and consider people who are in fact partially autonomous not to be autonomous. First, decision-making autonomy, such a person's freedom of choice, the ability to deliberate and decide between various options. This is presuppose enough and unstable information and voluntary absence of coercion or manipulation. Second, information autonomy. That is the right to receive clear information and to know the information that exists about my person. And third, functional autonomy. That is to say, the capacity to make decisions on one's own. The 3 dimensions of autonomy are clearly intertwined. If a person does not information autonomy, that is, they do not know information about their situation, or even if they do have it, they do not understand it, can hardly achieve decision-making autonomy. The same is true of so-called functional autonomy. If a person does not have the necessary support for their functional autonomy, for example, an assistant who enables them to travel by plane, or a platform lift that allows them to get on stage, it is difficult for them to decide to go to a congress in another country or to participate as a speaker. And certainly, when we really talk about autonomous decisions, we often mean authenticity. The decisions taken generate an identity and a reality in accordance with a personal life project. This is why sometimes when we know a person, we know that something may not be right when the decisions and actions they take have nothing to do with what their values have been. I would like to end by stating some commitments that it's important to acquire as professionals, as entities, and as society. A commitment to encourage the participation of all people. Commitment to support for such participation. Commitment to self-determination, stimulating the exercise of autonomy of all people by providing the necessary support to enable them or representing them when required. Commitment to diverse life projects, those that each person wants with activities that make sense to each. And in environment that are meaningful to them. Commitment to favor the strengths and capacities of each person. And commitment to helping each person find his or her place appropriate to the capacities he or she still has in a decision-making process that concerns them. In short, as Paul Ricoeur says, to achieve a goal for each person, a self-realized life with and for others in just institutions. Thank you. Eskerrik asko.
again, I would like to thank Lourdes in her absence, and I think that was a great thing to finish on a self-realized life for everyone, and I think that's what we want to achieve from this, and from all the work that we engage on in this area. That concludes the presentations from all the contributors. So it does, on the way time has marched on us. Unfortunately, we're sort of running out of time, so we're not able to take any further questions at this point. But what I would say is that the minutes, the main conclusions, and any material from the workshop today will be published on the project's website. So please go there, and you'll be able to pick up all the information. I would also mention that within the chat box, I have identified a couple of web links. One is to the walkability tool in Ireland. There's a web link on that one, and there is also from Sergio a web link on the policy within the Bizkaia region as well. So if anybody wants to sort of follow up on those, the web links are in the chat box for that. In sort of drawing to a conclusion, I found this very interesting and very encouraging to hear what has been happening to create fully autonomous societies to increase the social participation for everyone. And I think there are three key messages that came out to me. There may be others for others, but the three key messages that came out from me from the workshop today. The first one is there is a need to continue to work on changing the perceptions of society towards all citizens, so that their needs can be met. And in doing that, we need to encourage the wider society to understand the challenges being faced by others in society, such as the elderly, those that have got disabilities, etc., and to understand the challenges facing them in the environment that they are actually living in. And I think that's the first message come out here. We need to continue to change and continue to change the perception and continue to encourage the wider understanding of what the challenges are. The second key point that came out to me from this is the whole drive towards promoting social participation, dialogue, and social innovation. So as we include all of society, and particularly the vulnerable groups, the elderly, the disabled, in co-designing and co-creating solutions and initiatives that can actually help to promote self-autonomy. And the third key message that I took out from this is that policies need to be responsive to the needs of society. They need to be informed by the drivers of change. Such drivers can include citizens' rights, demography, the societal needs of individuals and the citizens. And they must give space for the development and the adoption of the correct enablers. And by this, I'm talking about the service providers and what they do and how they actually go about delivering the services, about the role of technology and how technologies can actually support it, the learning and development needs to take place for all the actors, be it the providers or be it the users and the recipients of it, and also the environment infrastructure that has to exist for them all. And those are the three key messages I have taken out from all of this. Before I hand across to Jose Miguel to say some final words, I would like to thank all the contributors for their very interesting presentations today and in sharing their thoughts and their thoughts and the work that they're actually being involved with. And in particular, I think it would be remiss of me if I did not thank Natalia and Federica and the ECH Alliance for their work in facilitating and supporting the workshop today and the webinar and making it all happen. This all happened in behind the scenes, and it's thanks to Federica and it's thanks to Natalia that happened. I would like now to pass across to Jose Miguel to say some final words before we conclude the event today. On behalf of myself, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, John, for your guidance and tolerance with the times. And thank you all for being here with us, for your presence. We hope we have provided some insights that could be replied or applied by others, or just an internal reflection for ourselves. I would like to thank all the panelists for their efforts and dedication. And overall, thank you to our communication team, the Alliance team, Natalia and Federica, for have guided us and contributed to the success of these workshops. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you next semester in Laos Island. Again, I would like to finish in English again. Sorry, in Basque again. Thank you very much for everybody.
Thank you very much, everybody.